All right, good afternoon, everyone. We're just getting started today on the May 13th Board of Directors meeting. And as always, we begin with an acknowledgement that we're meeting today on the traditional unceded territories of the Comox First Nation. And we read each meeting one of the calls to action, call to action number 70, Museums and Archives. We call upon the federal government to provide funding to the Canadian Association of Archivists to undertake, in collaboration with Aboriginal people, a national review of archival policies and best practices to, one, determine the level of compliance with the United Nations Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People and the United Nations Nishnaway or Ndlika principles as stated to Aboriginal people's inalienable right to know the truth about what happened and why, with regard to human rights violations committed against them in the residential schools, and two, to produce a report with recommendations for full implementation of these international mechanisms as a reconciliation framework for Canadian archives. And we'll move then. We have a recommendation for a closed meeting if someone cares to move that. Okay, any questions on that? Anyone opposed to that? Okay, and that carries. Then we have adoption of minutes from April 29th. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Any questions on those minutes? Anyone opposed? And that carries. And we'll move into reports. And the first one is the 2024 Financial Statements and Audit Findings Report. Thank you. And as always, it'll be Corey Vanderhorst. This time he's on Zoom. And we'll hand it over to our CAO to set things up.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon to the board. Katie Powell is our Manager of Financial Operations, and Katie will be introducing the staff report and then I presume introducing Corey as well online. So Katie, I'll turn it over to you to get things going.
Great. Thank you, James. And through the CEO and the chair to the directors, good afternoon. I'm here today to present the financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2024. Supporting me today is Matt McDonald, who's a financial accountant with the CBRD. I'll provide a summary of the financial highlights before passing the presentation over to Corey to provide an overview of the audit findings report. Before I begin, I do just want to take a moment to recognize and thank the financial services staff at the CBRD. The year-end process is a lengthy process with a lot of moving parts. Everyone does play a really important role in bringing this reporting together. So the reports in front of you today take a real group effort. So kudos to the team. I'd also like to thank the MMP team, who were a pleasure to work with throughout the audit process, as always. So review and approval of the financial statements is an annual process. However, as a reminder, in compliance with Canadian auditing standards, the financial statements are being presented to the board for approval prior to a finalized audit report being included. The draft audit report has been included in the financial statement package for your review, and we're anticipating that MMP will provide an unmodified, or what's referred to as a clean, audit opinion. I get you to advance, Jake.
I think it's on to you, Corey.
Oh, sorry, I'll keep going. Just having presentation issues here. So turning into the financial statements now, the first statement is the statement of financial position, which can be found on page 6. This statement provides a snapshot of the regional district's assets, liabilities, and accumulated surplus as at December 31st, 2024. The first section of this statement shows the regional district's financial assets. Financial assets are those that can be used to pay for existing liabilities or fund future operations. In total, financial assets have increased $6.3 million over prior year as a result of an increase in cash, investments, and accounts receivable, offset by a decrease in debt recoverable from member municipalities. I'll note here that further breakdown of investment and accounts receivable by type can be found in note 3 and note 4 to the financial statements. Moving on to liabilities, these are obligations of the regional district that have resulted from past transactions and will result in the sacrifice of future economic benefits. Liabilities have increased $3.3 million over prior year, primarily as a result of an increase in debt and asset retirement obligations, offset by a decrease in deferred developer contributions and deferred government transfers. The next section of the statement of financial position includes non-financial assets. Non-financial assets are assets which are acquired, constructed, or developed that are used to deliver services or consumed in the normal course of operations. They are not typically used to discharge liabilities. Non-financial assets have increased 25.8 million over prior year, primarily due to an increase in tangible capital assets, or what's sometimes referred to as TCA. The increase in TCA is a result of additions of 40.3 million, offset by annual amortization of 14.6 million. I'll highlight that of the total capital additions, approximately 27 million related to the sewer conveyance project, which remains a work in progress at the end of 2024. The final section of the statement of financial position shows the regional district's accumulated surplus, which has increased 28.8 million over prior year. This indicates a positive change in the regional district's financial position. Accumulated surplus is comprised of both the accumulated remeasurement loss, totaling 1.1 million, and the accumulated surplus totaling 342 million. This figure is further broken down in note 13 to the financial statements. The three main categories of accumulated surplus, as shown, are equity and tangible capital assets, reserve funds, and operating surplus. Equity and tangible capital assets represents the amount that has been invested in capital assets, and this balance cannot be used to fund future operations. The total reserve balance of 91.9 million has increased 17.4 million over prior year. This balance can be used to fund future operations and capital projects as directed by the board. The increase is a result of budgeted contributions to the reserves totaling 19.5 million, interest earned on the reserves of 6.3 million, and net transfers from the reserve to operating and capital of 8.4 million. Finally, the operating surplus represents the funds that are available for general operations. Of the total balance, approximately 3 million has been allocated in the 2025 budget. The total reserve balance of 91.9 million is comprised of 5 major reserve categories as presented here. I'll highlight from the graph above that you can see the total reserve balance, approximately 50% relates to capital works reserves and 28% relates to future expenditure reserves. Moving on to the next statement, the statement of operations can be found on page 7. This statement shows the result of the regional district's operations for the year ending December 31st, 2024. Annual surplus has increased 8.6 million from 2023 to 2024. It's really important to note that the annual surplus calculated in this statement follows the accrual basis of accounting, which differs significantly from how transactions, including debt repayments and capital acquisitions, are presented throughout the financial planning process. Total revenues have increased 16.5 million over prior year to a total of 107.3 million in 2024. General government revenues decreased 3.8 million over prior year, primarily as a result of receiving and recognizing the growing community fund grant in 2023, which is not a recurring revenue item in 2024. Recreation and cultural revenues increased 5.7 million over prior year as a result of increased requisitions of 2.2 million. Parkland donations recognized as contributions from others totaling 2 million, and government grants of 1.2 million. Sewer revenues increased 9.3 million over prior year as a result of increased requisitions of 922,000 and contributions from others of 7.3 million related to the sewer conveyance project. Total expenses have increased 7.9 million over prior year to a total of 78.7 million in 2024. All core service areas experienced increased expenses in 2024 as compared to 2023, with the exception of public health services, which saw a modest decrease of 76,000. Environmental health service expenses increased 2.4 million over prior year. Of the total increase, 1.7 million of that relates to amortization expense and 246,000 relates to debt charges. Recreation and cultural services expenses increased 1.4 million over prior year. 424,000 of the increase relates to personnel costs. The remaining increase is primarily due to increases in general goods and services costs totaling 667,000 and operational grants and grants to local agencies of 296,000. The statement of change in net debt shows the decrease in net debt of 3 million is mainly due to the annual surplus offset by the net change in tangible capital assets. A financial to assets to liabilities ratio greater than 1 means that financial resources are available to finance future operations, whereas a ratio of less than 1 means that future revenues are required to pay for past transactions. The asset to liabilities ratio for 2024 is 0.88, which has improved from 0.86 in 2023. The statement of remeasurement gains and losses presents both the current year and accumulated unrealized loss on pooled investment funds held with the MFA. In the current year, there was an unrealized gain of 112,000. The remaining pages to the financial statements consist of the statement of cash flows and the accompanying notes, which provide further details and breakdown of the balances on the face of the statements. They are similar form and content to prior year, with the exception of note 11 related to asset retirement obligations. The presentation of this note has been updated in the current year to include a continuity schedule of the asset retirement obligation by type of obligation. The statement of cash flows, which you'll see here, shows the sources and use of cash during the year. And you'll note there was an increase of about 2.5 million. So that does conclude the summary of financial highlights. And with that, I'll pass the presentation over to Corey Vanderhorst, the engagement partner from MMP, to provide an overview of the audit findings report.
Thank you, Katie. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me here to present to the board. And if you can go to the next slide, please. There we go. So as Katie mentioned, we are providing an unmodified audit opinion. It's a clean audit opinion. We've got all the last few steps of the audit process wrapped up today and ready to sign the report after the board approval here this afternoon. Next, please. When we go through our audit, we look at controls that you have in place at the regional district to ensure you're getting accurate financial reporting. We sample transactions throughout the year, and we don't look at every transaction. And I would like to formally acknowledge the assistance from regional district staff in the finance department, especially, and throughout the organization for helping us go through the audit process. It goes very smoothly, and we very much appreciate the time and effort involved in getting ready for us. The second bullet is probably the most important one on this slide to highlight is the number of materialities. So this is an important number for the audit. And we calculate it as a percentage of your annual revenues, be close to 5%. And this number drives our audit testing. So we're looking at everything that's larger than $4.5 million. That's all the big capital projects, tax requisition, some grants that come in. And then below that dollar value, we're sampling to get comfort over the financial statements. No limitations placed on the performance of the audit. You know, we were able to see all the documents that we requested. We were able to talk to all the people that we wanted to talk to and get comfort over the numbers. We didn't find anything unusual, no irregularities that would impact the financial statements or evidence of conflict of interest. Just a reminder that we're not specifically looking for fraud when we do a financial statement audit, but if anything came up in the course of our audit, I would be required to report it to the board. So I don't have anything to report out tonight, so that is a good news item. And then I will confirm our independence with respect to any work that MMP has done. There is one other project that MMP has been engaged by the regional district on an IT strategy project. To maintain our independence, that team, our digital services team, is completely separate from our audit team. There's no crossover. They don't see our audit. I don't see the work they're doing. And the work that they are doing does not directly impact on the financial statements and the financial results. The other way that we safeguard our independence is that we have a final quality control review that takes place by one of our experienced partners, actually in the Fraser Valley region, in our Abbotsford office. So making sure that we can maintain that independence, and then we can give you an independent audit opinion here today. I'll stop there. I'd be happy to answer any questions from the board.
Great, thanks, Corey. And just looking around to see if there are any questions. I don't see any in the room. Are there any online? I know Director Arbor's online. Just want to check to make sure there's nothing there. All right. Well, nothing like a clean bill of health to produce no questions. So thanks as always, Corey. Appreciate your help every year. And we'll see you again next year, if not sooner.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. So we're still on receipt. And so we have, I guess, 3 different items for receipt: the financial statements and audit findings for receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? And we've had the overview of financial statements and the audit report. And there is also a recommendation. If someone cares to. Thank you. Any discussion on the recommendation? Anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that carries. So we'll move on to item number 2, the statement of financial information for 2024. And I'll pass this over to our CAO, Warren.
Thank you, Chair. And again, I'll introduce Katie Powell to introduce the Statement of Financial Information for the Regional District for 2024. Katie.
Thank you again. Through the CEO and the Chair, the Statement of Financial Information for the year ended December 31st, 2024 is being provided to the board today again for approval. This is the second of 2 statutory financial reporting requirements, with the first being the audited financial statements, which were just discussed. In previous years, the audited financial statements and Statement of Financial Information, or what we commonly refer to as the SOFI, have been presented to the board at separate times. However, given that the SOFI contains the financial statements as a large body of the report, and all of the information in the reporting is available at this time, staff feel it's appropriate for the board to receive both items for approval at this meeting. So as required by the Financial Administration Act, the Statement of Financial Information includes the audited financial statements and a number of schedules, including the schedule of remuneration expenses for elected officials, schedule of remuneration expenses of employees for those employees earning remuneration greater than $75,000, as well as some schedule of payments to suppliers. So once approved, the signed report will be posted on the CVRD website and forwarded to the province, completing the 2024 financial filing requirements. So I'll leave it at that and would be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Great, thanks very much. And again, looking around, seeing nothing. This just speaks to what a strong report that was as well, and nothing online. Excuse me. So we're on receipt currently. Anyone opposed to receipt? And then there's a recommendation. Thank you. And seconded. Any questions on that? Anyone opposed to the recommendation? And that carries also. And more money matters, the investment report for the year ended in 2024. And this is for receipt. If I get a motion. Thank you very much. And I'll pass it over to our CAO to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Lucy Witchark, our Chief Financial Officer, will be introducing this report and available for questions to follow. Lucy.
Yeah. I'll just grab the clicker. So thank you. Through the CAO to the Chair and Directors, good afternoon or good evening. So to align with the 2024 financial statement results, staff have prepared the investment report. And this report focuses on the activity and balances for the year 2024. With the board's adopted investment policy, reporting requirements exist, which stipulate the identification of the investment holdings, disclosure of deviations from that policy, and reporting of investment performance. Okay, so those 3-4 things. Okay. The portfolio is at this time made up of 2 components, GICs and pooled MFA funds. So overall, we're seeing some good results. The GIC portfolio outperformed the benchmark by 0.5%. This facilitated through securing investments prior to rates dropping. And additionally, pooled funds were purchased during the year, $4 million worth, which did result in good earnings as the bond market recovered. A total of $151 million was held at December 31st, and this is $4.5 million more than the prior year. The chart in the staff report gives you more exact details, but I'll just highlight for you that at December 31st, the position included 67 million in cash, 52 million in MFA pooled funds, and 32 million in GICs. Adherence to policy has been tested, and we are in line with the exception of Scotiabank total investment. The percentage invested in Scotiabank is 28%, and the policy factor states that it should be no more than 25%. This is a low-risk area, and regardless of that, staff, as we keep working forward, will make adjustments to bring this into line. So overall, the investment portfolio, it earned $6.8 million in 2024, and this as compared to the year before at $5.5 million. The performance is broken down into 2 components of the portfolio. On here, you'll see the slide shows you the GIC performance. In 2024, a total of $2.7 million was earned. The rate of return was 5.34%, and we've compared that to a benchmark of 4.81%. Okay, so that just tells us how well it's doing and if it's doing okay. And next, the return on investment on the MFA fund. This graph shows the returns over a period of 3 years. So keeping in mind these are investments in bonds, the bond market would normally recover as interest rates go down. I'm so sorry. As interest rates go down, the bond market typically recovers. And I do have to say that it was just great to see that, in fact, this historical trend did happen. In 2022, our year-end recorded an unrealized loss. In 2023, the market value of the bond is a positive figure, and as is the case as well in 2024. I believe it is important to point out the realized gains that you're seeing here. We see that in the dark blue, that this represents what has been paid out to the fund. The value is over $1 million in 2022. That rises to 1.4 million in 2023 and 1.5 million in 2024. The unrealized gain or loss that informs our financial statements and the board of directors of the market value of the fund at December 31st. So that's the purpose of taking that snapshot at December 31st so that you see and we roll into our financial statements what the market value of the portfolio is. And just my last little note going forward, finance will continue. We continue to work on our cash management process. We continue to look at diversifying this portfolio further, always keeping an eye on what's happening in the market. And we want to make some space still for learning more about sustainable investment and how to apply that to our processes. And myself and the staff are happy to answer any questions that you may have.
All right, thanks, Lucy. And I see a question from Director McCollum.
Thanks, Lucy, and thanks for bringing this report forward. I just had a question around the bond holdings. It's listed at, I think, 53 million or thereabouts at our year end in December. And I didn't see it in the report, but there doesn't seem to be a breakdown of what type of holdings there are. It just is MFA bonds, so I guess it's not any MFA product, but Yeah, I'm wondering if it makes sense to provide a little bit more detail. Is it all in one type of fund? Like, I guess it's more a curiosity on how we're breaking, especially because now it is, you know, a fairly significant amount of money. Just wondering what we're holding it in and how we're getting to those decisions.
For sure. Through the chair, I don't actually have those details with me. I should have brought it and anticipated those questions, but we are holding 3 funds. The ultra short-term bond fund, the short-term bond fund, and we also have some funds in the fossil fuel. I could, if we take 1 minute, probably Kelly probably has that very readily available on her computer, so she can provide that to you. We have 4 funds. So from a market, okay. So from a market value perspective, I'll let you know what that figure is. The fossil fuel fund has $2.7 million in it. We do have a money market fund, which has $1.7 million. This is actually cash. And then the ultra short bond fund is $10.4 million. And the bulk of it is in the short-term bond fund. So those is, and that's $37 million. And one of the reasons why most of it is sitting in that fund is that's really meant for use up to 3 years. So it's investments that normally circle around a 3-year term. Okay. Good.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into the second piece of that question in terms of like how we're making those decisions. And, you know, generally when we have funds available that have a longer horizon for how long we can invest it, there's the possibility of a higher rate of return and likely some higher risk. And so I guess that was my question, is whether or not we're looking at the types of reserves that we're holding. And, you know, if we're building a reserve that's for use 10 years down the road, if we're getting those monies put into investment vehicles that have higher rate of return and maybe slightly higher risk associated with them.
Yeah, like to the chair, a few comments on that. The last step we took in this portfolio was to start to build in that middle ground. So between 1 year and 10 year, want to have a mix through all of that. So we bought a few things that were in the middle, 5, 6, 7 years, and we're pretty anxious, Kelly in particular, to get into more of the long-term stuff. We want to do a bit more cash planning, a bit more solid long-term planning to give us a greater level of assurance. However, we do already know intuitively that we can make longer-term investments. So some time for us to dive into those options from an MFA perspective. And if we have opportunity to pick up even a GIC or 2 that's more long-term, then that's our current strategy as we're going forward.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Lucy. And I don't see any in the room, and I'm assuming there's nothing online. So yeah, thanks very much for that complete report and and all the work that went into it. So we have, and that was for receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? And that carries. And next part is the participation part. This is directors' updates. If anyone cares to share an update on any of the appointments they may have held by this on behalf of the CVRD. Director Hillian.
Thanks, Chair. As people know, I've been the liaison to the main treaty table with Comox First Nation and the federal and provincial governments. And that role is due to our affiliation with the province, but also obviously part of our ongoing relationship with Comox. And we've come through their treaty votes, and the main table is continuing. And I've posed the question to Sarah Kavanagh, who's the chief provincial negotiator, to what extent we should continue to participate. Her response is that there will continue to be main tables. The focus will be on overlap issues and side agreements that still need to be negotiated. The CVRD may still have an interest in some of those side agreements related to foreshore and water management. So there is still a role, but the province's focus at the moment is on the settlement legislation. So we may not start the side agreement negotiations into the fall. She says you're more than welcome to continue to attend. You've been a positive influence, or if you prefer, you can wait until the side agreement negotiations start in the fall. So my suggestion is that we make this a topic for the RD's next leadership meeting with Comox and refer it to them in terms of their interest in our continued participation at that table, and we determine the ongoing engagement based on that response. So that's basically what I wanted to report.
Yeah, thanks very much, Director Helene. I see both Jake and James making notes of that, and now we're solidly back to a monthly meeting schedule with Comox First Nation. That'll be definitely something that'll be discussed at future meetings. And go next to Director Grieve.
Well, thank you very much. Nothing as illustrious as that, but I have the privilege of serving as the board appointed representative on the Comox, or sorry, the Comox Valley Community Justice Center. And unfortunately, they had a strategic planning session yesterday that ran from 10 o'clock until 3 o'clock. I was hoping to get there before 3 o'clock, but as you probably know, the EASC meeting ran until 3:15. So I didn't really get to the strategic planning session. Also, Comox Valley Food Council, which has been very enlightening. Comox Valley Comox Valley Social Planning Society as well, which I've had the pleasure of being on for many, many years, along with, I think, Director Doug here, who holds the lifetime membership, I think, after, like you were on board that one in the 90s, so he beats me on that one. That's about it for the official stuff. I had the great privilege of being awarded a lifetime member of the Comox Valley Farmers Institute. I'm a lifetime member of the Oyster River Salmon Enhancement up at Oyster River. A lifetime member of AVICC, being that I served in all the table officer positions going through the ranks there. And honored to be a past member of MFA, MIA, UBCM, and FCM. Thank you.
Sounds like that's all the initials. So well done on that. And with that meeting, yeah, well, I was going to say with that meeting that lasted till 3:15, you really should speak to the chair about tightening things up a bit. I'll go next to Director McCollum, the MFA report.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, the MFA had their AGM just a few weeks ago, and I put my name forward again to be one of the trustees. So I'm one of two trustees from Vancouver Island on a board of 8. I believe part of the reason Director Grieve suggested that I get sent down there is that there was a lack of women at the table, especially at the trustee table. And I took his advice that it might be worth my while to put my name forward. So I did. That was now a couple of years ago. And I can report I was the only woman that put their name forward this year. So in the previous year, there was 2 women on the board with me, but we're down to 1. So I don't know that the ratio has improved a lot, but I continue to put my name forward, and I really do enjoy being involved with the organization. It does really good work. It maintains the AAA credit rating that allows us to borrow for capital projects at a very affordable rate. And we've now seen the province downgraded in their credit rating twice in the time that I've been at that board, and yet we're still managing to maintain that AAA. So, and that speaks to really a lot of excellent work that goes on at the organization in terms of advocacy and ensuring that the rating agencies really understand what the difference is between MFA and the province, and the separation that our finances have from provincial government. So yeah, they continue to do good work. It's in very good hands, and I appreciate being sent to the MFA to represent our community. Thanks.
Thanks, Director McCollum, and thanks for stepping up as a trustee. It's obviously in very good hands if you're beating, I think, BC, Ontario, and Quebec in terms of credit ratings. Perhaps they should try and borrow from MFA. Are there any other reports? Because I have a couple that I can make if it's so. I honored to sit as the CVRD's appointee to the Comox Valley Community Health Network. It's been kind of a year of renewal for the network. Probably the first big intake of new coordinating circle members since the network was founded. There were a number of people who'd served on that circle for 5 to 7 years and were wanting to move on to other things. So we've a recruitment process begun and over the fall and winter, and there are now a dozen new members of the coordinating circle, which is fantastic news. I was just this weekend at the Lake Trail Community Education Society open house with one of the new coordinating circle members, just talking about the work that we're doing and continuing to get out in the community. The other large factor is, of course, the RFP for the community health network is currently being. The RFP was out, and it's now the submissions are being reviewed, and 2 members of the coordinating circle are sitting on that review team, and that process will be wrapping up in the very near future. I'm also fortunate to be the appointee to the Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Climate Leadership Plan, referred to as VICL by some. And over the course of the year, we held a summit, which was last spring, summer, which invited both electeds and staff from the region to attend a full day virtual summit. It was very well received. There's a lot of great presentations, and I think VICL's realized that the great strength that it has is the ability to bring together staff and electeds and to bring together regionally kind of the experts and resources in that field. And the survey that we had following it seemed to reflect that, with people rating 4.5 out of 5. The statement, I'm leaving with ideas about how to work collaboratively with other communities in the region. So it's fulfilling that function of bring people together. There are also regular meetings at which there are presentations, often by RD staff. The last one was by RDN, and I would certainly put forward that I'd like to see our staff present on the award-winning Dyke Road project. There was also a presentation at AVICC, which I think many people in the room attended. And I should say I'm also fortunate to serve as co-chair of VICL, and also fortunate to be our representative on the ICF, the Island Corridor Foundation. And as you know, there's work being done by our staff in the shared vision process, and there's going to be an all-party meeting on June 9th of all of the regional districts and nations, and the federal government has been invited. Hope they'll attend to share the work done so far on the shared vision process. There's also a parallel all nations dialogue, which began last December with a lot of leadership in Comox First Nation to get that on the way. And the First Nations asked ICF to make tangible process on reversion. And ICF is committed to doing that, and over the last 2 months has set up a reversion subcommittee, which I'm fortunate to sit on. And while the work of that committee is in camera, it's important, and I see definite progress being made over the meetings that I've been at. There's the CRD has invited ICF to work on a little bit of regional transportation planning, and and also in partnership with First Nations, the region ICF met with the BC Minister of Transportation to request funding for maintenance on the Alberni spur from Parksville to Port Alberni, and that was with the concern that as of the recent fire a couple of years ago, where Highway 4 was cut off, to ensure that the corridor might be viable for that. And I think I've got a few more notes, but I think probably that's the highlights of the work that's been done. There's a lot going on at ICF, and I believe we have JK report coming to the board later, just in the near future. And that concludes my report. And if anyone else has anything further to add? Okay, and I think those are first, this is not a receipt motion required, so we'll probably move now on to item 5, the 2025 UBCM Community Emergency Preparedness Fund applications. And I'll thank you very much. And a seconder. Thank you very much. And I'll pass it over to CEO Warren.
Thank you, Chair. And Doug DeMarzo, our General Manager of Community Services, will introduce this report. We're available for questions if there are any to follow. Doug, over to you.
Thank you. And through the CAO to the chair, this report is to look to apply to the Union of BC municipalities 2 grant streams, including the Emergency Operations Center Equipment and Training Grant, as well as Emergency Support Services Equipment and Training Grants. Together, combining with the regional application, which includes Comox First Nations, City of Courtenay, Village of Cumberland, Town of Comox, and us here at the CVRD, we could be eligible to receive up to 2. Some examples under the EOC equipment and training stream is really looking at a multi-agency EOC flood exercise plan with discussion based on tabletop exercises. And with the ESS stream, which is our emergency support services, is maintaining compliance with the legislative requirements under the new EDMA Act to provide those emergency support services and to continue training under the provincial evacuee registration assistance program, as well as really looking at recognizing the public and staff and volunteer engagement that we do through both recruitment and recognition events as we build on our seasonal readiness. So altogether, this is kind of a regional grant application, and the recommendations outline the support we need to apply for this. Happy to answer any questions.
We're a very quiet group today. No questions that I'm seeing here, and nothing online. So thanks, Doug, so much. We're on receipt at this point. Anyone opposed to receipt? That carries, and there are 2 Okay, moved and seconded. Recommendation 1, that a regional application to the UBCM Community Preparedness Fund be submitted in the amount of up to 200,000. Anyone opposed? That carries. Recommendation 2. And that's for for 150. Anyone opposed to that? I didn't think so. Okay, great. Thanks very much, and that carries. All right. On number 3, thanks. Scrolling down there. And that the Comox Valley Regional District agrees to apply for, receive, and manage the grant funding for each grant stream in 25-26 on behalf of KFN, City of Courtenay, Village of Cumberland, and the Town of Comox. Any questions? Anyone opposed? And that carries. And next, we'll go to the strategic initiatives update for this month. Move receipt. Second, someone? Perfect. And I'll hand this over to CEO Warren.
Thank you, Chair. Just a quick update here for the board. This is your somewhat quarterly update on the strategic initiatives that the board has set. The set of milestones for each of the projects are updated on a regular basis and reported here. As decisions are needed or more specific updates are available, we bring specific reports to the board or the respective committees and commissions. So this is not meant to be a fulsome review, but certainly you've got your executive team here if you've got any questions on any of the initiatives noted. I will also note that several of the initiatives have been concluded, and that doesn't mean that the work stops. In many cases, the work continues from an operational perspective, or in the case of housing, for example, there's a new item on there as the board has shifted gears from its feasibility work into now the housing entity work that we spoke about at the most recent board meeting. And then I would just close by saying that this particular document will be a key input to the board's strategic planning session that is scheduled for June 17th. Yeah, thank you. But like I say, if you've got any questions on any of the initiatives noted, staff are available to try to answer or have a discussion on them.
All right, thanks, James. Seeing no takers on that, and that is for receipt. Anyone opposed to receipt? That carries. Next, we've got some ESC committee work. We have a recommendation, number 1. Someone cares to move it? And this is a vote of the areas A, B, and C. Anyone opposed to recommendation 1? And that carries. And move 2. Can someone second that?
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments on recommendation 2? And that carries. And move 3. Thank you. And Director Grieve, please go ahead.
Well, seeing as I have the turned upside down daily on Craig here to this equivalent of a soapbox. This is a proposal, actually, it's just a referral from Courtney for a small subdivision that's right up adjacent to the Comox logging road that runs between Cumberland Road and Lake Trail. That any of us who grew up here remembers drag racing on that road. We just wanted to bring to the attention of our Courtney colleagues here that there was no provisions made for any access to the logging road, and because they're all cul-de-sacs. And the same is true of the previous, actually, the previous subdivision up there that McQueen's built. So they have cul-de-sacs ending, and then there's a logging road. And we know that the kids that go to Arden Road School use that logging road quite a lot. You know, in fact, we're looking at hopefully at one day turning that into a trail for either Courtney or maybe it's the whole regional park system, because it just makes perfect sense, right? But anyway, so it was just something that we put as a comment when we sent it back to council. So when you guys get it, take a look at it. I think it's imperative that we don't do these sort of things, that we don't make dead ends, that we have an easement going through, because try getting a right of way after the fact,
Yeah.
right? You know, so let's do it up front. Thanks.
Okay. Well, thanks, Director Reeve. That's useful commentary, and it'll, I'm sure, be reviewed by City of Courtney. Director Hardy.
Yeah, thanks, Sharon. Just in addition to Director Greaves' comments, there is again the safety of getting across the highway down the road as well. So taking those, I think that was an additional comment that was put forward, is how do we make sure people are able to get safely across that very busy highway once the subdivision's established, and we got kids traveling to Arden Elementary and Lake Trail as well. So I just wanted to flag that one as well. Thanks.
All right. Thanks for noting both those in terms of safety of young people in the community. That will be noted when it's received back by Courtney. So at this point, we're going to go in camera. And what? Oh, I'm sorry. We've not voted on recommendation 3. We're just chatting about it. Anyone opposed to vote of the areas? Anyone opposed to recommendation number 3? And that carries. And we are going to move in camera. Before we do that, we're going to take a moment to acknowledge certain young men in this room who, as of Friday, will have worked at the CVRD for 20 years, which is an awfully long period of time. It's not me. Talking about James. So we have a card and a little something inside it in acknowledgement of that. And I believe there's something delicious in the fridge, which we're just going to get to. So James, thank you for all that you put into the CVRD every day, right up to today. And maybe we could have a round of applause. And Director Hardy, please go ahead if you want to.
Yeah, I was just going to make mention of the fact that after 20 years, he's lost a little bit of hair too.
but it's looking pretty well coiffed either way. So we'll take a moment to enjoy what is just being brought in here, and then we'll move in camera after we're had some cake.